Hello and welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of Precon Recon, the show where we reconstruct Precon decks just a few cards at a time. Episodes go out live on Mythic Gaming TV's Twitch account on Fridays, with these recaps coming out afterwards to help you stay up to date. Here's how it works. We start out by drafting Commander Precon decks and play a game with them. For the next week, each player may swap out 5 cards, with 3rd and 4th place getting 1 and 2 extra substitutions respectively. The next week, we play again and repeat the process until the next set comes out. Overall standings are decided by points that are awarded for weekly standings and KOs during the games. The winner gets bragging rights, and the next set's precons are drafted in reverse order of the standings. The final standings of Season 1 are as follows: Rin in first, Chad in second, Dylan, which, in case you didn't know, is me, in third, and Chris in fourth. Chris got the first pick and chose Exit from Exile, the Gruul deck led by Faldorn Dreadwolf Herald, a 3/3 human druid with, whenever you cast a spell from exile or a land enters the battlefield under your control from exile, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. You can also pay 1 and tap it, and discard a card to exile the top card of your library, which you can also play this turn. With the second pick, I chose the Mind Flayers, the Dimir deck led by Captain Nagathrod, a 3/6 horror pirate with horrors you control have menace. Whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. At the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature card in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from their library this turn. Put it onto the battlefield under your control. With the third pick, Chad, who is only starting the season out this week before passing the reins to a new guest for the season, chose Draconic Descent, the Izzet deck led by Furkrag Cunning Instigator, a 3/3 dragon with flying, haste, and whenever one or more dragons you control attack an opponent, goad target creature that player controls. Furkrag also has, whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, if that creature had to attack this combat, you put a +1/+1 counter on Furkrag and you draw a card. Finally, Rin was left with Party Time, the Orzhov deck led by Nalia Dearnis, a 3/3 human rogue with, you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard spells from the top of your library. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain Death Touch until the end of turn. Now that we know who has each deck, let's get to the game. I had the high roll and got to go first. I play an island for turn. Chris plays a Highland Forest and passes. Rin plays a Plains, which they tap to cast a Soul Ring. Chad plays a Myriad Landscape. I play Dimir Aqueduct, bouncing my island back to hand and discard down to hand size. Chris plays a Gruul Turf, bouncing his Highland Forest back to hand and passes after discarding. Rin plays a Bajuka Bog, which enters tapped before casting Mikaeus the Lunarch, who enters with 2 +1/+1 counters. Chad plays a Mountain, then casts Izzet Signet. I play an island for turn, then cast Woe Strider, creating a 0/1 white goat creature token. Chris plays a Highland Forest and passes. Rin plays a Plains, then casts their commander, Nalia Dearnis. Chad plays another Mountain for turn. He casts Mind Stone and then Burnished Heart. On my turn, I play a Tainted Isle. I cast Phyrexian Revoker, choosing Mikaeus the Lunarch as the creature who cannot use activated abilities. I swing at Chris for 3 with Woe Strider, and he takes the damage. Chris plays a Mountain, then casts Kodama's Reach, putting a forest onto the battlefield tapped and revealing another forest that goes into his hand. Rin plays a Swamp for turn before casting Firha's Retribution, which prompts them to create a 4/4 Angel Warrior token with flying and vigilance. Rin swings at Chris for 3, which he takes. Chad plays a Path of Ancestry. He moves to combat and swings at me with Burnished Heart. I declare my goad as a blocker, but then sacrifice it before damage to scry 1, which I send to the bottom. Chad switches the land he played for his turn to an island before passing the turn. I play an island, then cast Nemesis of Reason before passing the turn. Chris plays a forest for turn, then casts his commander, Faldorn Dreadwolf Herald. Rin taps their Angel Warrior token and uses the Firha's Retribution ability to destroy my Phyrexian Revoker. Rin then casts Burikos Party Leader, completing their party. They move to combat, and each party member receives a +1/+1 counter and gains Death Touch until the end of turn. Nalia swings at Chad for 4. In response, Chad uses Myriad Landscape and also sacrifices Burnished Heart to search for 4 lands, which all come into play tapped. After that, he takes the 4 damage. Rin plays a Castle Locthwain for turn in their post-combat main phase. Chad plays a Path of Ancestry for turn, for real this time. Then he casts his commander Fur Crag. Moving to combat, he swings at Rin. Rin takes the damage, and Chad goads the Angel Warrior. Chad then casts Goblin Spymaster in his post-combat main phase. On my turn, I play a Rogue's Passage, then cast my commander, Captain Nagathrod. Moving to combat, I swing at Rin with both Nemesis of Reason and Woe Strider. When Nemesis of Reason attacks, Rin mills 10 cards. Rin blocks Nemesis of Reason, killing it, while Woe Strider connects for 3 damage, prompting Rin to mill another 3 cards. Using Captain Nagatrod's ability, I put Nighthawk Scavenger onto the battlefield under my control, and at my end step, I create a Goblin with creatures you control attack each turn if able, from Chad's Goblin Spymaster. Chris plays a Raging Ravine for turn, which comes into play tapped. He plays Terramorph, putting a mountain onto the battlefield. On Chris's end step, he also receives a Goblin from Chad's Goblin Spymaster. At Chris's end step, Rin uses Mikaeus' ability to remove a +1/+1 counter from him and give a +1/+1 counter to each other creature they control. Rin plays a Starlit Sanctum for turn, and then casts Puppeteer Click, putting my Nemesis of Reason into play under their control until the end of turn. Rin moves to combat and swings at me with the 7/7 Angel Warrior who has Double Strike this turn, as well as my own Nemesis of Reason. They also swing at Chad with their commander and Burricos Party Leader. I mill 10 cards on Nemesis of Reason's attack trigger. Chad loses 4 life and Rin gains 4 treasures on the Burricos attack trigger. Chad blocks Burricos and takes 6 damage from Nalia de Arnis. I block Nemesis of Reason and take 14 from the Angel Warrior. Fur Crag gets a +1/+1, and Chad draws a card for the Goated Angel doing combat damage. In their post-combat main phase, Rin casts Mardu Strike Leader. Nemesis of Reason is exiled at Rin's end step. On his turn, Chad casts a Hedron Archive. Chad casts Chaos Warp, targeting Puppeteer Click. Rin shuffles and then reveals a land, which enters the battlefield. Chad moves to combat and swings at Rin for 4 with Fur Crag. He chooses to goad Burricos Party Leader, and in his post-combat main phase, he casts Baloth Baratil Entertainer, which goads all creatures with power of 1 or less. I start my turn by land cycling Ash Barrens, finding a swamp. I cast Night Howler for its bestow cost, making it an aura. I attach it to Nighthawk Scavenger, giving it an extra +8/+8, making it a 15/11 with Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. I swing at Rin with Nighthawk Scavenger and Chris with Woe Strider. Rin takes 15 damage and Chris takes 3 and mills 3 cards. Captain Nagathrod allows me to put Tilinkali Hunter from Chris's graveyard onto my battlefield. Chris uses Rebound on Terramorph, so when he casts it, he creates a 2/2 wolf. He puts a land onto the battlefield and then casts Escape to the Wilds. He plays a land from among the exiled cards and creates another 2/2 wolf. He moves to combat and swings at Chad with Faldorn and Rin with the Goblin token. Both creatures are blocked and the Goblin dies. Chris then casts Izzet Chemister from exile, creating yet another 2/2 wolf token. Rin plays a swamp for turn before casting Priest of Ancient Lore from the top of their library, gaining them a life and letting them draw a card. They then cast Squad Commander, which creates 4 1/1 core warrior tokens. Rin moves to combat and swings at me with 5 creatures. I lose 4 life on the attack trigger from Burricos, and Rin gains 4 treasures. I block a 10/12 attacker and a 9/8. Before damage, I sacrifice the blocker I got from Chris, allowing me to scry 1 thanks to Woe Strider. I still take 16 damage. Chad moves to combat right away on his turn and swings at me with Fur Crag for 4 damage, which I take. He goads Nighthawk Scavenger, and then casts Death Kiss, which doubles power of opponent creatures who attack other opponents of Chad. On my turn, I cast Mind Flayer, gaining control of Burricos Party Leader for as long as I control it. I move to combat and nearly decide to sacrifice Burricos and attack Chris with lethal damage with just Nighthawk Scavenger, but the table persuades me to swing at Rin, who blocks with their Angel. With the doubled power, I was swinging with 32 lifelink power, so I gained 32 life. On Chris's turn, he plays a Blighted Woodland for turn, then casts Light Up the Stage from exile, creating a new 2/2 wolf. Chris casts an Arcane Signet that was newly put into exile and makes another wolf. He casts Explore, which allows him to play an additional land this turn, and plays the other card exiled with Light Up the Stage, Temple of the False Gods, letting him draw a card and making yet another wolf token. Next, he casts Xenagos, the Reveler, and immediately activates its ability to give himself 4 red and 4 green mana. He uses that mana to cast Sandworm Convergence from exile, making a 4th wolf this turn. He uses the rest of the mana to cast Beast Within, targeting Rin's commander, Nalia de Arnis, replacing it with a 3/3 Beast token. At his end step, he creates a 5/5 worm from Sandworm Convergence, but puts it onto the battlefield off camera. Don't worry, he fixes it later. Rin starts their turn by playing Solemn Doom Guide. Using Solemn Doom Guide's ability, they cast Nalia from their graveyard. Before Rin moves to combat, Chad adds Monstrosity 3 onto his Death Kiss, allowing him to goad 3 creatures. He chooses Rin's Squad Commander, Mardu Strike Leader, and my Nighthawk Scavenger. Rin taps Mikaeus, removing a +1/+1 counter and giving a +1/+1 counter to each other creature they control. Rin swings at me with everything, and each creature gets their power doubled from Chad's Death Kiss. After a lot of math, we come to the realization that regardless of what I do, I'm taking lethal damage and getting eliminated from the game. At Rin's end step, Nalia is exiled and returns to the command zone. On his turn, Chad taps 2 and sacrifices Hedron Archive to draw a card. He then casts Anger Turtle. Chris plays a Spinerock Knoll for turn, exiling 1 card underneath it, which can be played later without paying its mana cost if he does 7 damage and taps a Mountain and Spinerock Knoll. He taps Faldorn, exiling the top card of his library and allowing him to play it this turn. He plays Sweet Gum Recluse, which has Cascade. He puts a Saravox Tome onto the battlefield from Cascade, which gives him the initiative, and the first room of the Undercity lets him put a land from his library into his hand. He puts 2 wolves onto the battlefield, 1 from the creature and 1 from the Cascade cast. Each of the 2 wolves get 3 +1/+1 counters from Sweet Gum Recluse. He activates Xenagos' +1 ability again, this time giving him 14 mana. He casts Beanstalk Giant using 7 of that, which enters as a 12/12. After that, he casts Mizium Mortars, which does 4 damage to each creature he doesn't control. In response, Rin sacrifices a creature to Starlit Sanctum and does 5 damage to Chris. Next, he casts Volcanic Torrent, which has a Cascade trigger as well. He cascades to Direfleet Daredevil. He gets another wolf from this Cascade cast. Using Direfleet Daredevil's ETB ability, he casts Unbreakable Formation from Rin's graveyard, which gives him yet another wolf. Volcanic Torrent then resolves with a storm counter of 6. Every creature Chad and Rin control are destroyed. He calculates the amount of damage he can do and then decides to do lethal damage to Rin and 12 damage to Chad. At his end step, he creates another worm from Sandworm Convergence. Chad realizes he has no chance to fight Chris's literal army and then decides to concede. So our final stats after Game 1 are as follows. Chris is in first with his first place finish and 2 kills. Chad is in second. Rin is in third with 1 kill, so they'll get an extra swap for next week. And I am in last and will get 2 extra swaps next week. Thanks for tuning in to the first Season 2 recap of Precon Recon. Once again, episodes will be going live on Twitch every Friday at 3:30 Central Time on the Mythic Gaming TV account, with a recap coming hopefully the following week. Link to our Twitch account will be in the description of this video so you can catch us live. Thanks for watching, and until next time.